Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Mark's Side of the Ring. No, I am not Miguel Minetti. I am Nick Fiorentino, and Miguel Minetti is on vacation this week. But alongside me is the guy who replaced me a few weeks ago, Fred DeCourt. Fred, how we doing, buddy?
Doing good, doing good. Glad to be back and excited for the show.
Good. Well, I figured with Miguel gone on vacation and you being a big Undertaker fan, I thought it'd be fun to do a show where we just kind of kick back and talk nostalgia. As you could see on my show notes, where I usually write down a bunch of things that I want to talk about, all I have is Undertaker. So I felt like the topic being Survivor Series season, the Undertaker's 30th anniversary, in the business, I thought it'd be cool to just talk Undertaker, classic Undertaker, what we liked, what we didn't like, the greatest rivalry, should he continue, all of that good stuff. So you're ready to go?
I'm ready to go. 30
All right,
years
well,
of content.
we got to cover it in 50 minutes, so we'll
Yeah,
have
right.
some fun. But without further ado,
Oh, time to pour the old Terramana.
there we go. It's nice to have a co-host that's not a prude and will drink with me. So
Cheers.
cheers, man. So I guess my first question that I'll start out in just this general conversation about The Undertaker is, what is I know you've been a fan of wrestling for a long, long time. What's your earliest memory of The Undertaker?
So I started watching in the fall of '98.
Okay.
So a little late. So he'd been there already 8 years. But one of the first things I remember is actually one of his more famous moments. It was when he was starting to go over to the ministry kind of stuff, and he was feuding with Vince McMahon, and he gave Vince the gift box with the teddy bear.
Yeah.
And set it on fire in the Inferno, and Vince is on his knees crying. And that was one of not only my Undertaker memories, but that was my first wrestling memories. So subconsciously, that was why I ended up loving that character so much. But yeah, that was one of the first things I remember. And I was like 10 years old when that happened. So that was like some freaky stuff at the time. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
So I go 98.
That's funny to me that's because I'll be honest with you, and we'll get into it a little bit later when we talk about like maybe our least favorite eras of Undertaker. I think the ministry and corporate ministry Undertaker is probably my least favorite, but I think I've been watching a little bit longer than you, being older, obviously. So my earliest memory of The Undertaker is his feud with Jake the Snake Roberts. I think that's the first time I remember watching Undertaker live, and I remember I was at Tim, who did this show with us when we did the great AEW WWE debate. He had one of those old school black boxes, so he got every pay-per-view. So I remember being at his house to watch that WrestleMania and seeing the Undertaker and Jake Roberts, and that's my earliest memory of the Undertaker in a live feud. Obviously, I watched the tapes in the past, the Tuesday in Texas when he first came out, the original Survivor Series. And I feel like I had the same kind of opinion of him as most of the kids in the crowd that you would look at in that first entrance he ever did in the first Survivor Series he was in, where everybody just kind of stared at him like they didn't know how to take it. I being a big horror movie fan, I obviously love like the zombies and all of this kind of thing. So seeing like this undead character, and of course I knew he was alive. I was old enough to know that dead people can't return to life, but I was still young enough to believe that Hulk Hogan punching somebody 10 times in the face standing in a turnbuckle was real. But nevertheless, with Undertaker, the move where he just kind of grabbed your neck and just held it there always creeped me out. I don't know if I just have some fear around, things around my neck or whatever the case may be, but him choking somebody in the corner with his eyes rolling to the back of his head was just always such a creepy view to me. And his character I latched onto right away. Of course, he was a babyface when I really remember him, so I was already gravitated towards him, being one of the kids that loved baby faces growing up. But I mean, The Undertaker was just the shit, man. He was so cool back in the day, with Paul Bearer coming out. What were some of your favorite feuds that The Undertaker ever had?
Boy, he's had so many great ones. One of my favorite ones, I mean, obviously, and I'm sure at some point during this podcast we'll talk more about the whole rivalry, but his feud with Shawn Michaels
Yeah.
that led into WrestleMania, and then the feud after with Triple H and everything, that whole 4 year run is probably the best storytelling that they've done. But I'd have to say my favorite feud of all time with his is him and Kane. And again, I now granted that feud happened before I really became
Yeah.
about a year or so, not but going back and seeing all of the storytelling that and how far in advance with Paul Bearer saying that he had a secret and that whole thing. I mean, that really is, I think, one of the greatest stories that WWE has ever said, ever put out there. Just from how it started, something so small months prior, and then by the time Kane debuts, you like kind of forget all about that. Like that Paul Bearer had said that and all this, and then what they would go to have at WrestleMania, and then their other matches. I mean, over the years, then different things have happened. They would feud, they would team, they would feud, they would team. But whenever they were together, whether it was as Brothers of Destruction or as a rivalry, it was great. But that first rivalry, I think overall with Kane is probably his best. I enjoy the that he did with Yokozuna. I thought that was really good stuff with the casket matches, and as hokey as it may have been, him rising above Royal Rumble.
Yep.
I mean, for that time period, I thought it worked. Maybe today it wouldn't, but at that time period, I think it did. So, yeah, but I'm going to go with Kane. Him and Kane just, it worked. And
Yeah.
that Kane character was only supposed to last like a couple of months. They did that just to because Taker needed a big opponent for WrestleMania, and he didn't really have anybody. And they were trying to get him ready for SummerSlam with Austin. And it ended up, Kane's been around, almost 25 years. Hell, he's the mayor now. So,
Yeah.
to say it worked, I think is for sure,
I don't want to.
I'm jealous of you that you were a fan that early and you got to see that stuff live. I mean, I've seen it all now watching back, but I would have loved to have been a fan of The Undertaker when he was that slow, methodical, did the choke thing in the ring with the eyes rolling back, and did all these, things like came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then boom, that version of The Undertaker is so good.
I remember my earliest live show memory. I remember bits and pieces of it. I know that the main event was the Ultimate Warrior against Papa Shango, so that tells you the timeline. I also remember Bret Hart fought Shawn Michaels, and Nails fought the Big Boss Man. So I remember those three matches. I have to think The Undertaker was probably on that card. I can't imagine him not being on it, but I don't remember. I guess I could look it up if I wanted to. I also went to a house show around the time that Shawn Michaels was champ, his first babyface champ run. And again, it's hard to believe he wasn't on that card, but I don't remember seeing him live. And the first time I ever truly remember seeing him live, I guess it wouldn't have been seeing him live, but I was at the Royal Rumble when Kane and The Undertaker, when The Undertaker was coming back from being the biker after Kane buried him alive in the Vince McMahon feud, and the bell toll came at the Royal Rumble, and then it turned out to be Spike Dudley, and Kane came out and annihilated Spike Dudley after getting eliminated. I remember that, but my point to the Kane thing is that WWE is at its best, and this isn't going to be a anti-WWE, WWE debate, which, we certainly could do from time to time. I know you're a big WWE guy, but they're at their absolute best when they have a slow-building storyline.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it be, and I've mentioned in the past, Triple H and Batista storyline, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, but I agree with you 100% on the Kane and Undertaker storyline, because that was such a slow build, and I don't want this to come out as derogatory towards Kane, but I can't think of another side character that would have been as successful if it wasn't for the fact that he was playing the Undertaker's brother. And I'm not taking anything away from Kane, because Kane made it, he's big. His storyline, his character was believable and intimidating and scary. But I think the fact that he was always tied to The Undertaker is one of the biggest reasons why he was able to last as long as he did, because that storyline was just so gold. And it's just one of those things where, I mean, the matches weren't always the greatest, although I personally think the WrestleMania 14 match was really good.
Yeah, that I thought was good. Yeah, I mean, not every match they had ended up being great, but yeah, that one I thought was good. And I think, yeah, the fact that he was Taker's brother
Yeah.
was a huge factor. I mean, what he did with that after was his doing. But that in the beginning, I mean, being tied to the Undertaker is what made him. If he just came out, like, yeah, maybe it would have only lasted so long. But being, attached to the Undertaker made it so much more powerful, because that's how powerful the character of Undertaker was. I mean, I think sometimes we forget, like when you watch that footage of Bad Blood '97 when he debuts in Hell in a Cell, and then I mean, yeah, he'd been around. He was Isaac Yankem, he was a fake Diesel and whatnot, but he was an unknown. Picture that. That's like if today somebody just debuts and becomes that big that quick. Like when we see it now, we see Kane, but you got to think back. Like he was nobody. He was a new guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't an established character, and within months, he was one of the top heels in the company. And I think a lot of it is because he was with Undertaker. Yeah, so I agree with that for sure.
I think a lot of it has to do with too, and of course, like around the time where this is happening, and my timeline is absolutely going to be screwy. So maybe I'm a little incorrect, but it like the internet was there, but it wasn't what it is now. And for me, we're talking about 1997, so that would make me 13 years old, 12 years old. So even if the internet existed, which I'm not sure if it did, I think it was around this time. I certainly wasn't like looking up WWE dirt sheets.
Right.
So I knew Isaac Yankem and I knew the fake Diesel. I don't necessarily know if I knew that those two were the same people, but I definitely didn't know that Kane was those two people. And I think that for like the kids, like myself, you, whoever else was interested, at the time, we didn't know that. So to me, it was a more believable story. I didn't really truly know that he was who he was until, much further, maybe even when he pulled the mask off and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I don't necessarily know. I think there's still some people, and we both have talked about, or, we both could talk about it, but I think there's still some people that think that he was the same guy who played the fake Undertaker in the Undertaker versus Undertaker match, because people just don't know enough about,
right,
that kind of stuff, and they don't listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, or they don't listen to they're not smart marks like you and I now. But I just think that there was just a believability to it. Like, wow, these two were brothers. Like when Edge and when Christian came out, they were labeled as brothers. They were best friends, but they were labeled as brothers. And you had people like Bret Hart and Owen Hart, together. So there were family bonds before, but I didn't think it was out of the realm of possibility that these two could actually be related.
No, me neither. I mean, I honestly didn't know. I mean, again, I was 10, and I wasn't really. If I was on the internet, like you said, I wasn't knowing things like to read spoilers and all that. But a funny story about that is, again, between being 10 and the internet not being what it was, I remember a friend of mine had a sheet of wrestlers' real names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's nothing. I mean, everybody knows everybody's name. You just go to Wikipedia. But in 98, 99, it was a big deal. Like, it's like he had like this, like crazy secret in his hand. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why is his name Glenn Jacobs and his name's Mark Calloway? How are they brothers? They have different last names. Like, now I feel like such an idiot, But I don't know if a 10-year-old would think that now, because a 10-year-old can probably find out quicker than I could, right? But then I didn't know, and that was like one of the first things. I mean, I knew wrestling wasn't like real, but I didn't know to the extent, you know what I mean? And that right there was just proof. But I think that's part of the lore that is lost, just as the older you get, and then with the internet. But like not knowing those things,
yeah,
questioning those things, you know, it's very hard for WWE today to make you question, you know, because we know what it is and you could read everything online. So I think that was one of the things about that time period, and obviously even earlier, that like made it so special. Is that you know they could have been brothers, you didn't know,
It's
but
funny. It's funny you say that stuff because the scary thing about 2020 is that 10-year-olds, you know, to your point, probably don't need to go on the computer to look that stuff up. They probably just do it from their fucking iPhones now, which is
right,
a
yeah,
scary,
on top,
a scary
yeah.
world. But you made me laugh when you mentioned like looking up wrestlers' real names because I feel like America Online for a 1997 13-year-old wrestling fan was two things. First thing was looking up wrestlers' real names and birthdays, and the other thing was looking up South Park characters dressed as wrestlers. Did you
Oh
like?
my God, that was a huge thing.
Wasn't that
Yes,
like super fucking big? Like I would
that
always
was
just look at,
huge.
oh,
I
there's
forgot.
Eric
Yeah,
Cartman
that
as
was.
fucking Golga. Like it's just
Yep,
so funny to me.
that was a big thing. Yeah, I remember that. I
The
remember
dumbest shit that people would look up.
it was crazy. Yeah, I mean, I remember like just yeah, seeing like all those different things, and then like one time there was like this website that had like wrestlers' emails.
Yeah.
Probably weren't real. I think I emailed a couple of them. Obviously, I didn't hear back from any of them, but like thinking, oh my God, I got their email. It was probably, you know, or their, you said AOL, their AIM messenger like name,
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
and, like thinking, you know, I'm going to chat with, you know, Goldberg on instant messenger, like, you know, but see, and that's the crazy thing though. Today, you can do that.
I know you could.
Right? You just go. I mean, they may not reply, but you could tweet at them or you know message them on Facebook, and sometimes they may reply. You never know. But
Yeah.
that's part of the thing. It's great, but I think it takes away because not just like characters like Undertaker, you know, that he really kept it, you know, hidden for years until really this year, last year. But even like a regular guy like an AJ Styles or you know John Cena or whoever. Uh, they're so accessible that they're not. It's like back in the day, you would only see them on TV once a week, maybe twice a week, whatever. And they were like, you know, these big stars, like you know, you revered them. Now it's like you could see when he's going grocery shopping and when he's working out and what he's having for dinner and when he's on vacation. And it's just like there's so much access. It's cool, but it's like it takes away specialness, I think, of it. But that's a different episode for a different.
No, it's funny. I was listening to Jericho's podcast on Friday when he had Miro on, and he was talking about just
Oh
being a
yeah,
big fan of like being on Twitch and everything. And you're right; they're so like accessible now. Like you can just fucking
yeah,
talk to anybody. I mean, just Twitter alone, you can get a hold of any of them. I got one more point on the Kane Undertaker.
yep.
Well, I mean, we could do a whole episode on just Kane and the Undertaker. The history's there, but one of my favorite feuds, or one of my favorite angles or episodes of Raw, I should say, that they did was, and I it could be between two episodes. I think I got it right, but so the Undertaker just lost to Shawn Michaels at the Royal Rumble in the casket match where
Mm-hmm.
Kane set him on fire. So I don't know if it was the Raw, the next Raw, or maybe the Raw after that. I don't remember now at this point, but you know, Monday Night Raw is going on and it's just business as usual. And every once in a while, like the lights are flickering, and like Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler first are just not saying anything about it, and now they're mentioning it. They're saying, "Oh, maybe it's technical difficulties, maybe it's this, maybe it's that," and there's like TV issues, and like the whole night, there's just little things happening here, there, here, there. And I don't remember if it was the same episode, but I remember one of my favorite things about The Undertaker, like one of my favorite segments of The Undertaker, is when he gets wheeled out and he's laying on that thing, that table, and the lightning bolt
Yep.
strikes him. And you hear Jim Ross, he's like, the lightning bolt just struck The Undertaker. The lightning bolt just struck The Undertaker. And he's like, could it be? Will it be? And he sits up and he just like marks the fuck out. And it's like the coolest thing. And then The Undertaker goes through that whole storyline and he talks about everything. And then Kane does the thing with the fire and he walks right through it. So then he walked straight through the fire of hell to face Kane. It was just like the coolest fucking thing for a 13 or 14
So
year
well
old
done.
guy.
I know
It
exactly
was
what you're
like,
talking about.
if
Yeah,
like
he
if
had
you're
been
talking
off.
like
I think he'd been off a little while
yeah,
from the casket burning. So it had been
yeah.
like a couple, whatever, you know. Yeah, that is a great moment. And Jr. You know, contributing to that makes a huge thing too. Like that, it's all part of all part of it. But what that is such a great moment.
It's why he's JR. I mean, it's why JR is one of the best, like of all
Oh yeah.
time, arguably. I'll put him right up there, along with like Gorilla Monsoon and Heenan. I'll put fucking Jerry Lawler and Jim Morales just because that's my childhood. But yeah, he sold that 100%. But for a 13 or 14-year-old kid, I mean, like that was a time where I don't want to make fun of wrestling because I watch wrestling now, but the stereotype of people who watch wrestling now. But when you were 13 and 14 in the Attitude Era, fucking everybody watched wrestling. And
that was the cool thing to do.
And all you did was talk about what happened the night before. Like when I would get punished in school, like my parents would ground me from watching Monday Night Raw, and you would have thought that I think I would have rather than amputate my arm if I did something wrong than not let me watch fucking Monday Night Raw. Like it was like life to me.
Oh, big time, huge. I mean, you couldn't miss it. It was. And I remember that was a struggle for me, especially being young. Like my parents letting me stay up to watch to the end. God forbid I couldn't miss the end. I mean, God, the end's always the best, right? The overrun was. Oh
my God.
But yeah, just that era. I mean, it was just great. I can't. Sure, there were things that weren't great in it, but I think overall, there was something special about that time period. Yeah, you couldn't miss it. Everybody was watching. It was the thing to watch. And will it ever get to that again? I don't know. I'd like to think so, but I think it's gonna be hard to pull off, to be honest. I
don't think you can get to that level without going back to some of the things that they did, which they just won't, I think, ever do again. Like whether it be just profanity or the women that they had, now you just can't do that kind of stuff.
No.
Like,
but the other thing is, go bent out of shape now over if they do something like a little, for instance, like last week on SmackDown when Aaliyah kissed Buddy Murphy, right? I mean, okay, I get it. She's 19, he's whatever he is, but everybody was all like, if that was the Attitude Era, that'd have been another week of TV. But now it's like, oh my God, that's terrible. How you want the Attitude Era? You said, they give you something that would have been really not a big deal in the Attitude Era, and now everybody's like, this is the worst thing. This is terrible. And they did something a couple years ago. I forget what it was. I don't know if it was maybe something with the Uso and Mandy Rose angle with Naomi. I don't remember, but there was something like that where it became like, it was like a sexual thing and people got up like all up in arms. So it's like, I don't know even if the WWE wanted to do like full blown Attitude Era or like push the envelope a little more, if they could even do it, because the audience is just so, I mean, you got people like us that would be like, yeah, it's awesome. But the majority audience now is so politically correct. You can't do anything. So
well, it's like, how about JR? I don't know exactly what he said, but I remember reading about it and then going back and watching the quote. But I guess he said something about one of the female wrestlers, being super attractive, but saying it in kind of a sleazy way, and had to go on and apologize. But then you have Jerry Lawler fucking screaming puppies every time, a woman shows cleavage or anything like that, or just the angles alone where, like, Goldust is fighting fucking Brian Pillman for like the services of his wife. It's just like it's his property or something. It's just like, you just can't
never
do it
happen today.
Nah, you can't do it anymore. And if you can't do it, the worst thing they can do is go to like a Attitude Era light, because then it's just going to be terrible. So
right. If you're not going to be able to do it full, like, don't do it then at all. It's just going to seem like you're trying, Right.
Now, I'll say this to answer my own question, moving off of Kane. I'm not going to sit here and say that they've had the best matches. We'll get into the Undertaker's best matches later, and I'm sure we're going to be in agreement on that. But to me, if I'm thinking Undertaker's greatest rivalry, and we're going word association, first name that comes to mind when you say Undertaker's greatest rival, go. To me is Mankind, I feel like, because that's, again, like transitioning out of like the era when I first started watching where he's feuding with, Jake, and he's feuding with Yokozuna, as you mentioned. Then there comes in this guy who, again, I wasn't a big WCW fan, so I didn't really truly know Cactus Jack. I didn't know that it was Mick Foley. I didn't really know until they said it, but I didn't really know anything outside of here's this guy who wears this weird fucking Texas Chainsaw-ish slash Hannibal Lecter-ish mask, sticking his finger down someone's throat. It just like weirded me out to no end. I just thought he was like super deranged, which is a word they used multiple times to describe him. I thought their matches were not the greatest, but I thought when you talk about physicality, one of the most physical matches, time in and time out. Of course, that's Mick Foley's, MO,
Right.
to just get the shit kicked out of him. But those matches to me are some of the best. That rivalry, again, some of the best, and obviously led up to one of the greatest spots of all time. I'm trying to guess, so Kane fought later that night for the title against Austin in the first blood match. So you clearly were in as a fan yet, or not a fan, but were you watching?
No, I missed that, but I saw it not long after because I started watching a few months after, and I saw it on tape. So not that long, but no, I didn't get to see that live. I wish. That's one of my biggest regrets as a wrestling is that I didn't see King of the Ring '98 live.
Yeah.
Because I don't you could watch it on tape. I mean, the first time I saw it, I do remember being like, "Oh my god!" But I could only imagine watching it on pay-per-view live and seeing that, and especially at that age, and nothing had really been done like that before. Yeah, Shawn took the fall at the first one, which was a big deal at the time, but this was another level. I wish I saw that live, but yeah, I will say that feud is great, and that built Mankind. I mean, that made him, that just like we said with Kane, the feud with Taker made Kane. I think the same thing could be said for Mankind. That was one of the first times you had seen Undertaker not always have the upper hand. Man, was beating him. He beat him in their first match, I believe.
He just kept beating him to a point of I would get really frustrated. And there were times in the past, Yokozuna seemed to have the upper hand on him, but in the end, the Undertaker, prevailed.
Right.
Then you have I remember the Giant Gonzalez and that whole fucking debacle, and he had the upper hand on the Undertaker, and then the Undertaker obviously prevailed. But it seemed like time in and fucking time out.
Right.
Mankind continued to get the upper hand on him. Wins in the first match, beats him in the Buried Alive match, beats him in the SummerSlam match where Paul Bearer turns on him. I don't feel like the Undertaker fucking gets a win against this guy, and I'm sure he did, but I don't feel like he gets a win against this guy until the fucking Hell in a Cell, and he had to throw him off the fucking cell, the cell, and tombstone him, fucking just kill him.
Right.
It just seems like he had to put him through fucking everything just to get the win, and I remember just thinking as a kid, can the Undertaker get a fucking win here? What's
yeah, I mean, and at that time, he would lose occasionally, but not to the extent that he did against Mankind. That was really the first time that he lost consecutive like that.
It was all the time.
Yeah, I guess, and it's funny that was that because Vince didn't really have any major intentions for Mankind. He didn't, that's well documented. He didn't want to sign Mick Foley. JR convinced him finally to do it. And that's why
how about just before you finish your point, the quote, I'm going to let you sign this guy just so you could see what it's like to be let down.
Yep, that's exactly.
Quote,
Yep, that's right. Yeah. So, and obviously JR wasn't let down. He was right on that call.
I mean, he was right from the first time Mankind came out. He was right. I mean, even if that's all he did, he only did the Undertaker feud, and the Undertaker, beats him in the final match, and Mankind goes away and is never seen again. He fucking wasn't wrong, with Mankind. Just with that feud alone.
He does that first Raw that he debuts, the one after WrestleMania 12, and he takes out Taker after Taker's match with JBL. And he does, he did it in WCW all the time, but he does that elbow off the apron onto Taker. That iconic shot of that was in the Raw Open for years.
Yeah.
Of that elbow drop was in the Raw Open for years. That was the first night that he debuted and took Undertaker out.
It was the night after beating Diesel, though, right? Or
Yep. Yeah. He beat Diesel at WrestleMania, and he was facing JBL on Raw, and then after,
Oh, you're right. You
yeah.
confused me when you said JBL because I was thinking, no, it was Diesel. But you're
Oh
right.
no,
He was
God,
no.
thank God. No, maybe in
You're,
'05, but if he was facing JBL at WrestleMania in 1996, that would have been bad booking.
no, yeah, no, I agree. You
Yeah.
were right. But no, that and I did watch that '98, King of the Ring live again at my friend Tim's house with the
Nice.
illegal black box,
Yeah.
and when he threw him off it, I was like, is that fucking real? And Jim Ross, again, I'm a kid, so I don't,
Yeah.
So Jim Ross saying, oh yeah, but they know how to fall. I feel like him saying that because I never thought of that. I was like, well, wait, do they know how to fall? But like that thought never crossed my mind, like that they knew how to fall. How do you know how to fall? There's nothing
Right.
underneath it. It's not like the Shane McMahon bump where he falls literally on a cushion. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You see the fucking airbag like blow up when he lands. Like Mick Foley gets thrown off this fucking thing, does a front flip, lands on it through the table onto concrete. Like there's nothing that really like breaks his fall.
No.
And he's
No.
like a couple feet away from hitting the guardrail, which would have, killed him.
That's the big thing. I think, has said that. Like, if he hit that guardrail, he just missed it. I think his like legs went under it. If he hit that, yeah, that would have been not good.
How much money would you have to be given if somebody came to you right now and said, you have to take this bump one time, you have to take it. How much money do we have to pay you, Fred, to take this bump? What are you
Jesus.
thinking?
I mean, to face the Undertaker, I maybe would have done it for free, but I'd, I'd have to have the Terramana in me. But geez, it'd have to be a nice amount for sure. I don't know. I don't know if I could put a price on that.
I don't think I could do it for less than $1 million.
I was just gonna say it'd have to be in the $1 million range for sure.
Because
Because
there's so many things that can go. I would just be afraid of doing the flip. Like even if
yeah,
it's like the Rikishi bump, and he just hits me and I fall backwards, and I
right,
know that all I have to do is fall backwards and I'll be okay. Like that's one thing. This is like you're doing like a pseudo front flip, like
yeah,
onto a table, through the table, onto concrete. There's nothing about that looked like fun.
no,
And the second one was even worse.
right, and that fall doesn't get as much lore, but that really was the worst one. I mean, that ring, especially at that time, those rings were different than the rings that they ended up getting because of that.
Mm.
But those rings were much harder dating back to the Hogan era. They really enforced the ring and made it real sturdy, and though they were still using that up to that point.
Yeah.
Take a fall in today's ring is bad, like from there, but then it was even worse. Yeah, that's a nasty fall. He could have really. He's lucky that he didn't not only die but have like serious, permanent injury.
Right.
Not only from the first one, but especially from the second. But that impact, and he didn't know that one was happening. So imagine that too, not knowing that you're falling. He wasn't supposed to fall through.
Something was supposed to happen though. I don't know if he was supposed to like not fall all the way through or tell me, because did you watch Mick Foley's one-man show?
Yes.
So what was supposed to happen? Because I forget.
So from what I remember, he was supposed to what did he choke slams him, right?
Yeah, right.
I think he was supposed to choke slam him just like onto the chair on top of the cage.
I think now that you're saying it, I think it was supposed to give way little, and it was supposed to be like a slighter bump, not the bump that he took.
Right, he went right through it.
Right, now I'm remembering.
So, but he says that the first one with Shawn and Taker was so sturdy, and that's why I didn't seem to. And he notices like some of the clips that they had where it was together were coming apart just walking on it.
Yeah.
He was a little worried about it, but yeah, it wasn't supposed to just go right through like it was. And then Taker like jumps off, luckily he's almost 7 foot, so it wasn't a like long jump, but he had a broken ankle.
Right.
He jumped down onto the ring from up there. But the worst part about that fall, besides hitting the ring was the chair that followed with him that hit him in the head as it was coming down.
Yep.
It was not a good night at the office for him, but it made his career. So
Oh my God, did it ever? I mean, and there's that image that you know anybody that's ever seen that match at any point will never forget, where he's in the corner laughing and blood is coming out of his mouth and his tooth is in his fucking nose
iconic.
from that chair. It's just Mick Foley is on another fucking level of like just beast mode when it comes to that kind of shit. What would you say? We'll go top three, because how difficult is it to say your favorite of all time? What is your favorite / greatest Undertaker match of all time? Just three of them, two of them, whatever you want to do.
So my favorite of all time, and this was a couple weeks ago when I was on the podcast talking about the Hell in a Cell, when Miguel asked me my favorite Hell in a Cell, it was Taker and Triple H end of an era from WrestleMania 28.
Okay.
That was my favorite Hell in a Cell, and that's also my favorite Undertaker match. A lot because I was there, and it was the culmination of that story. But I think his greatest match is, in my opinion, undisputed, is the one with him and Shawn from WrestleMania 25. I think that's just, I mean, yes, Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat from WrestleMania 3, and you could say Bret and Shawn from 12, but I think him and Shawn is not only the greatest WrestleMania match, but for my money, the greatest match ever. Just because, I mean, okay, maybe two guys on the indie circuit had a better match somewhere, you know, in front of 200 people doing flips and flops all over the place. I don't know. But I'm not just talking about, like, the moves that they did. I'm talking about the story that they told in that ring. It was just unbelievable. And what I love about that match, and what I love about, especially with the Taker and Triple H from End of an Era, is you can take somebody that's never watched wrestling and you show them those matches. You show the video package leading up, like why they're here, and then you show them that match, and you can know what's happening without knowing who these guys are or ever seeing a wrestling match, because what they did is they told a story.
Yeah.
It wasn't just two guys doing all these crazy, amazing moves, which, don't get me wrong, that has its place too. You know what I'm saying? But as far as telling a story and emotion, which I think is what really makes wrestling what it is. You know what I mean? When you go out there and you use the moves to tell the story, but when you have real emotion and you pull the heartstrings. I mean, when me and Miguel were talking about the Hell in a Cell, like that shot when Triple H does the pedigree after the Sweet Chin Music, and then, like I said, the pedigree to Undertaker, and he kicks out, and Shawn is like, oh my God, because, he doesn't know, he wants this to end, and Taker tells him, don't end it, and everything like that. I mean, there was just so much raw emotion in there that you don't have to be a wrestling fan to understand what they're doing, and I think to appreciate what they're doing. So I'm gonna go. Taker and Triple H, my favorite match. His greatest is him and Shawn. So those two, and if I was gonna say a third one, I could pick one of the other ones with Shawn or one of the other ones with Triple H, but I'm not going to. I'm a very big fan of his match with Edge. Well, two of them. The one from 24 is great, but I also loved their Hell in a Cell match from SummerSlam in 2008.
Yeah.
What I loved about that is they brought so many different aspects of it. They brought back, because that feud started back at the Survivor Series in 07 when Edge returned and he hit Taker with a camera. They brought the camera into that Hell in a Cell match all these months later. They brought the ladders in because they had a TLC match and the tables. So they all built up. I think, and it's funny when you asked me before about feuds, I should have mentioned Edge because I think that whole feud was tremendous. But I'm going to go with between the Hell in a Cell and 24. I guess because it's WrestleMania, I'll go with WrestleMania 24. as like my third favorite Taker match. Him and Edge. I just love. I'm a big Edge fan also, but I thought they had a really good match, and I think Edge was so hot at the time. Back down, like he was like one of the, the best in the business, I think, and Taker, who he is. So yeah, I'll go with that too as my third.
I think I'm right there with you. I mean, I have written down while you were talking the Hell in the Cell, the first one with Michaels.
Oh yeah, right, of course.
Undertaker and Shawn Michaels won in the first WrestleMania. That was really the start of like I shouldn't say it's the start of the false finishes because he did do it. He did it with the Batista. Would that have been before or after? He definitely did it with Orton.
Before. That was 23. That's also another.
That's a great.
That's
a great match
feud.
too. I feel like the first one where like the false finishes really came alive and like the start of those kind of matches. That was the Shawn Michaels match, and that would be number 2. And then I was there for the end of the era as well, and I that's going to be number 3 for me. I'm not the biggest Triple H fan. I'm hoping.
Oh, don't tell Miguel that.
I know. Well, I don't know if he's still listening at this point, but Miguel's a very me person, so he's only listening when he's on the show. So
when he's
yeah. So we know you're not watching, Miguel, so it's okay. No, but those would be my 3 favorites. We could talk about The Undertaker all day. I got a few more questions for you on him that I want to dig deep into. First one, just rapid fire. Should they have ended the streak when they did?
No.
What would you have done with the streak? Would it have ever ended, or was that just not the right time for it to end?
Listen, I'm partial because I am a huge Undertaker fan, but I just think, they say every guy goes out on his back, but in his case, I don't think it was necessary. I think the streak was his legacy. He won world titles, but it was never, he didn't need it. It wasn't, but the streak was his legacy. I mean, hell, you think about it, it still kind of is, even though it ended. People still remember the streak, and that's still a part of him. But I think to have had it not end just would have been tremendous. I mean, the guy that did it, some people were against it because it was Brock. I thought Brock was the best choice.
Oh,
because he was legit.
Yep.
Yeah, you could build a new star. You could have Baron Corbin beat it. You could have AJ Styles beat it and make a star out of it. But do you really need – I mean, does it really make the star? I think at that point it needed to be somebody that was believable, who more believable than Brock.
Exactly.
But so the opponent, I'm for who it was. I get it. It was the first WrestleMania on the network. It was the 30th anniversary. They wanted something big to happen. But I don't know if they thought about it long term. Now, had that been Taker's last match, okay, maybe I wouldn't. I mean, I would still be mad about it, but I wouldn't, it was the end. But then when he came back, it's like, okay, now the streak's over, I'd still love to see him wrestle, but that was a big thing every year. And in my opinion, it never got old. Every year, starting with Orton, that was like the story of that year's WrestleMania match with him. It was the streak, and not only was it the story of his match, but it was pretty much the story of every WrestleMania. Like it was the title matches and that was usually bigger, than even the title matches. So
Absolutely.
I think they lost that. I think people would have loved this, but had Roman, because Roman did beat him, had Roman been the one that did it, okay, he's the only guy that I could have said, you want to make a star out of. He was already a big star when they fought, but I could have seen that, him breaking the one, since he beat him anyway. So maybe that's the only other guy I could have seen. And if 33 was it, and I that was the only time that I really felt this is it. Like 30, I thought, oh, he may be done here. 28, I thought, oh, he may be done here.
Yeah.
33, I thought, no, okay, this is it. Fred, give it up. He's done now, and I came to terms on it. Came to grips with, And obviously,
I think we all did because he,
yeah, I mean,
he puts the stuff on just to take it off. He leaves it in
what
the
a
ring.
moment. What a
Yeah,
moment. We almost,
really cool.
part of me, like, I'm glad he came back and because that match wasn't the greatest, but the end was so good. And I'm glad we got a couple more WrestleManias out of it and a couple more appearances. But, like, how better can you end it now than that? I mean, that is one of the greatest send-offs ever. It was simple, but it was so symbolic.
You're right.
It was so symbolic. So that's going to be hard to top. But maybe that should have been it. I mean, he said in the last ride. I mean, that's why they started that documentary because that was supposed to document just that weekend because they thought that was it.
Yeah.
So, and that's why they did the whole thank you Taker. I mean, until like a month before WrestleMania 34, that was it. So but bottom line, I still don't think they should end the streak. I was there for it. Part of that sucks. Part of that's like, okay, even though it wasn't good history, it was still part of Undertaker history.
Yep.
So I almost feel like I was a part of there for a major career moment for him, even though it wasn't a good career moment, So part of me is like, okay, that's cool. I don't know if that's me trying to accept it or not. But
definitely one of the most shocking moments I've ever seen.
Were you there? Were you there?
I was watching it at my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, her parents' house.
Okay.
And we were watching it. I remember her laughing at me because the look on my face. I mean, I wasn't even looking at the screen. I just the Undertaker was going to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, oh, you have 5 in for the third time, fucking 1-2 kick out, close 3, and like it was like 1, 2, 3, and then my neck jerked to the TV because I was like, what just happened?
I thought they fucked up.
Yeah.
I really thought that the ref fucked up. I'm like, oh shit, what?
I just couldn't believe it.
I'm there live, so I'm not hearing any. And then I'm waiting for something to happen. Somebody's coming out. Something's got to happen. There's no way they're. And then they put 21 and 1 on the screen on the Titantron.
And
And then the music. I'm like, okay, nobody's coming out now. I was like, I was so upset. They had a Divas Battle Royal that I don't even know anything that happened during that, the Vicky Guerrero Invitational. And then the main event, even, it took me like 10 to 15 minutes into that match when Daniel Bryan started to get some real momentum that I got into that. In the beginning, I was like, I don't even give a shit.
Were you more, was your initial facial expression more the iconic kid that we see, the African-American kid, in the front row? Was your face that, or was your face angry Ms. Girl? Like what?
Mine was shock. And then shock turned into anger. Yeah, shock turned into anger. But no, at first I was shocked. Shocked. I don't even think Michael Cole knew because if you listen to that commentary, he goes, the streak, and a pause. He was planning on saying, from what I've heard, the streak continues or is lives or whatever. Yeah. And that was that pause because he didn't know. He was shocked. And he said, it's over.
It's just like, it's such a unbelievable moment. And here's the deal with that whole thing. And I agree with you to a point. Like, the only way I would have thought the Undertaker streak should end is to make a star. And here's the deal. Like, the whole idea to me, what I thought was, okay, you have this believable guy beat the Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. Fine. That's fine. Let's get him in a feud with Roman Reigns, who they want to be the next big star. And Roman Reigns beats him at the next WrestleMania. But that didn't happen. Seth Rollins came out, and Seth Rollins won. So what was the whole point? Because he didn't even pin Brock Lesnar. Seth Rollins beats fucking Roman Reigns to retain the title or to win the title for the first time. So the entire thing didn't make any sense. Being a big CM Punk fan, I would have liked them to elevate a star, and I would have liked CM Punk to win. But,
that was a great match.
It was really. I
think that one gets forgotten about a little bit, but that was a tremendous,
really good match, and probably my favorite Undertaker entrance of all time.
Oh, so good with the like coming up. That was, and that there's a great picture. They've used it in different promo shots, just like that silhouette, and with those. It's such the coolest
entrance.
I think that's his greatest WrestleMania entrance. Yeah,
I think that's his greatest entrance. Period.
I could I was on the floor for that one, and far from the entrance because I was like 12th row ringside, but
Yeah.
so I'm like, and I'm being 5'5" and barely like I'm going like this trying to see, and I saw the entrance, but it wasn't until I saw it later on the DVD at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that was really cool. Like it looked cool
Yeah.
live, but seeing being able to really see it better.
We were 50, or we were, obviously the entrance was one of the end zones. We were the opposite end zone, but we were 20 rows up. So we had
Oh,
like
okay.
a bird's eye view,
Oh, nice.
really of it, like could just see right down on it because we were
Yeah.
up high enough to where we could see right down. And of course, we're on one end zone. And if
Right.
you've ever been to a pro football game or a college football game, we're in one end zone. It's hard to see the shit that's going on at the other end zone. But
Yeah.
of course, they had the big screens up and everything. So if they all looked like ants from far away. But, I vividly remember seeing, those hands, reaching up to try to grab them to pull them back down to hell.
Mhm.
Just one of the coolest Undertaker entrances of all time.
And one of the things I don't know if you watched the documentary that they just did last Sunday, meeting the Undertaker. It was like guy's first time meeting him. It's only
No.
5 minutes. So Xavier Woods is on as one of the guys. I didn't know this. They used at the time FCW guys for that entrance, and Xavier
Oh.
Woods is in. They're all in like red morph suits. You see like backstage. It's really cool. I never. You could see Sami Zayn in one.
Oh, fuck yeah. Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool. So it was all developmental guys, and Xavier was one. Like I said, Sami Zayn you could see was one. I don't know who. I'm sure other people that we know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I had no idea, so I thought that was really cool.
That is cool. The last Undertaker documentary I watched was the one with Orton, which I thought was awesome.
Oh, Untold, that was
Yeah,
really
the
good.
Untold. That was a good one. So I'm
Yeah.
caught up on that. I watched The Last Ride. I saw
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah, no, this is pretty good. It's quick. It's like I said, like 25 minutes. It's just like guys like when they first met him and all that. It's pretty cool. I'm excited for this Sunday. They're doing the Paul Barrett documentary,
Oh, okay.
The Mortician. So that should be pretty cool.
Yeah,
To hear his backstory in more
that
detail.
is pretty cool.
Because he was, he was a big part of him.
I thought they'd be running out of Undertaker material, but I guess I'd be wrong because they continue to come out with these documentaries.
Yeah, I know. The next week then is the Brothers of Destruction. Like it's like a whole sit down thing
That'd be cool.
that they're doing. Yeah, and then the last thing they're doing, is the Day of Survivor Series is him on Austin's Broken Skull sessions.
Oh, coming back.
Too, which I think is great because when they had that first one and they said that they could definitely do more, and I was like, oh, I wish they would. That'd be really cool. So I'm so glad that they are actually doing a second one. Hell, they probably could do a few episodes of that, but
I mean, you could fucking talk to that guy forever.
I mean, it's 30 years of
so
stories.
much.
I mean, forget about it,
And we ourselves, this was probably one of the fastest, closest to an hour shows I've ever done. I mean, I keep looking at the clock to say I want to get to this and I want to get to this, but I'm looking and we're running out of time. So let's just run through one more Undertaker thing, and we'll talk about the year 2020. So you go into the year 2020, you've had, prior to this, some matches with The Undertaker that weren't so favorable. You have the match against Goldberg, which was a total dud. You have, and maybe my timeline's a little spotty, but you have the match where him and Kane are fighting D-Generation X, and that match is fucking awful. And you've had a couple of these Undertaker matches at this point that aren't very good. And I'm of the, I won't say majority, because I think it's probably split somewhere 50-50 of people who are kind of tired of seeing The Undertaker. And I think maybe it'd be better for the character if he just went away because it's getting worse and worse and worse. And then you find out that he's fighting AJ Styles. And it's like, okay, well, if anybody can have a good match with him, it's going to be AJ Styles. But this should truly be his last match. But at this point, it is his last match, but it wasn't a last match that anybody could have ever predicted being, a studio filmed, production, of him and AJ Styles fighting. And of course it wasn't, Undertaker. It was Biker. It was kind of like a mix between all, but it was really Biker Undertaker, riding out on the Harley in the end. and doing all that stuff. I guess my long-winded question to you is, are you satisfied with what they did in 2020? Or would you be okay with that being the end of The Undertaker? And gun to your head right now, we know that he's going to appear at Survivor Series for his anniversary. Gun to your head right now, hypothetically, of course. Do you want or do you believe The Undertaker will have another squared circle wrestling match in the WWE again?
I think he will. I think because of the circumstance. Had that match with AJ been a regular match, then I would have said no. The same token, when I was saying before, how do you have a better ending than they did at 33 to end his career? I mean, him riding off on the motorcycle playing Metallica, I mean, that's pretty badass. And it was a match that, I mean, in wrestling, you rarely hear a match that's universally praised. Yeah. And I barely heard anybody say anything negative about that match. So
I thought it was very good for what they could do. It was
right.
It was campy. It had moments of corniness to it, but it also had some moments of like really cool, like just ass kicking. Like I think Corey Graves said it, but like Clint Eastwood-esque, just fucking badassery. So I thought it was really, really cool. Would you be saying, so if The Undertaker has another match, it's against AJ Styles, right? Like that's the only logical person for him to fight. I feel like getting a bodyguard is like kind of setting it up a little bit because he doesn't have Luke, Gallows and Carl Anderson to have his back this time. So I feel like the bodyguard is going to be there to kind of assist AJ Styles in a feud, potentially with The Undertaker. But I'm with you. I think they will have another match. Will it be the right decision? When it's all said and done, will it be the right decision that he has another match? Because here's the problem. Can he and should he have a really good match with AJ Styles? Yes. Yeah. But if it sucks, he's going to have another. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a gamble in a way.
It goes back to the whole story of the last ride.
Yeah.
He had a bad match. It's supposed to be done. He's got to redeem himself. And so when do you say when, and that's the scary part is that even though it was a cinematic match and it wasn't in front of a crowd and all that, it was a great match and they told a great story and people loved it. And the last few years with Taker, it's been touch and go. If he didn't have the right opponent and depending on what shape he was in that year, it could go one of two ways. And for it to end great the way it did, do you chance that? I don't think in a match with AJ Styles he'd really be leaving much up to chance. But you wouldn't think that him teaming with Kane against Triple H and Shawn Michaels would be leaving up much to chance, and it did. Goldberg, I was nervous going into that match, period. I thought
I was fucking Goldberg almost killed him.
I don't know if this is the right call to make, and sure enough it wasn't.
No, it was not.
Then they had that tag match at Extreme Rules, which was great. That was his last in-ring match in Philadelphia, which I was there for that. So that was one of the things that was making me hope he had another match. I was supposed to go to this year's WrestleMania in Tampa, and I've said for years I have to be at The Undertaker's last match, and I will be. So even though it wasn't technically I still was at his last match. That was, but part of me is like, well, I wasn't there, obviously, the graveyard.
Yeah.
So part of me selfishly wants him to have that one more, and I want to be there. I just hope it is the right decision if he does it. One of those things I don't think we'll know until it's over. Was it the right decision? I don't think he'll know. I think AJ's the perfect guy. I think it would be really hard if Taker's in great shape or as best shape as he's going to be in. He's feeling good. I mean, it's going to be hard to have a bad match with AJ Styles. Taker could still go. I mean, Taker could still hit his spots, and he could still be there, especially once he got that hip done. That made a more of a difference. So if he's good, I mean, he's proven he could still go. So I think him and AJ would be a great recipe for that. Would I go past that? No. I could say, okay, last match, ideal opponent, him and the Fiend.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of money on there, especially what I love about the Fiend is that a lot of his feuds, including the one he's currently in with Orton, is going back to things in his past.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people argued that he should have never lost against Undertaker at WrestleMania 31 when they had their.
I did not want him to lose. I wanted Bray Wyatt to win. I mean, that was
Bray was hot at the time, so that was a big thing. And then that was a one and done, and then they did the Brothers of Destruction versus Wyatt for his 25th anniversary at Survivor Series. So there's a lot. I mean, so I think that would be a cool story, and I think him and Bray could have a great match. But again, how many times do you roll the dice? So we'll see. I hope he does have one more in front of a crowd and has that final send-off. But at the same token, I don't want it to be one too many. So we'll find out in April.
Well, hey, man, we covered an hour, and I feel like we left a lot on the table.
For sure.
And I feel like this episode needs a sequel, maybe with Miguel as well. We'll see if he makes the cut. But, Fred, I do want to thank you for jumping on another spot start for us on Mark's side of the ring. It was a joy to talk to you about your favorite wrestler. Clearly can show that it's your favorite wrestler. I know you mentioned it on the podcast that you did with Miguel, and you mentioned it when we did the AEW WWE debate, but how can we find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram, Freddie D Freddie D _88, and on Twitter at Big Fred 88.
And here's the deal, guys. Like those of you who watch this and are big nostalgia fans, like if you disagree with Fred, fucking tweet him, tell him what you think. If you disagree with me or you agree with me, at NJF918 on Twitter. So feel free to agree, disagree. But these nostalgia, episodes I think are a lot of fun because it's a trip down memory lane.
Right.
And it was fun to go down a trip, down memory lane with you when it comes to The Undertaker. Guys, as always, this is Mark's Side of the Ring. You can find us on the True Exact Radio channel on YouTube. I believe this show will be airing on Saturday. At least that's the plan. It all depends on how fast I get it to Scott, our editor. But, thanks so much for tuning in and rest in peace. Took a long time for me to try to do that.